Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called What Not to Do in Sweden, Avoid These 10 Mistakes. So it's good, it's like a travel guide, like what not to do to offend Swedish people, whether that's, when you're a tourist or when you're, just planning on moving there maybe. Like, I think maybe like if you are into like doing one of these very specific things, I would assume like if you just cannot imagine your life like not doing one of these things, it makes you say like maybe Sweden is not a country for me to move. So I'm curious to find out like what exactly are those things. But let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
Swedish people are polite and friendly, and they don't like to make a big fuss. They often smile, but they might still be furious on the inside. This is a list of 10 things that you should.
Okay, so what I'm getting at this is that maybe they're not gonna tell you, hey, do not do this, cut it off, or maybe they're not gonna tell you, hey, you know what, like maybe we don't really do that much here, like it's seen as like culturally like offensive, or maybe it's just like, you annoy me, like stop doing this, but they're not gonna tell you because they're very like polite about this. So it makes me like a little scared, because if no one's gonna tell you, like if they're gonna tell you, hey, stop, then how would you know? You're just gonna get like the cold shoulder and you're gonna be thinking like, what did I do? Like it's better if them like actually tell you like what's wrong.
Shouldn't do in Sweden.
It's so sunny, I'm surprised. Isn't it supposed to be very dark for like 9 months out of the year?
So you want to visit the cold north and explore the lovely country.
Love that he was like, I know obviously realistically Sweden is very cold, but he's just like walking in this like beautiful place and it looks like very sunny and it looks, just warm or maybe just comfortable. So he's just like, oh, you want to visit the cold north? It doesn't look that cold to me.
Of Sweden, but you don't want to make a fool of yourself. I'm here to help you with that. With this simple guide, you can avoid the worst pitfalls when you travel to Sweden. Let's kick things off with buying a round of drinks.
What? You shouldn't buy a round of drinks? That's seen as bad?
So you're at a bar with some random Swedish people you've met, and you notice that your glass is empty. You want to be a good chap, so you surprise your new friends by bringing back a pint of beer for everyone at the table. Imagine your surprise when you're not met with cheers and thanks. Instead, you're met with suspicious looks. Buying rounds isn't all that common in Sweden. Everyone typically buys their own drinks. If you buy a round, every Swede starts to do a mental calculation.
Okay, hold on, but that's just like a nice thing to do. Like if you're out in a bar just drinking, I'm gonna assume, well, like it's seen as nice, right? It's not coming out of like me being whatever. It's just like, hey guys, I just I got the next round. I don't think I would actually do that. I think I would ask first, like, hey, you guys, like, I'll pick up the next round. Like, everyone good? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll just like warn them beforehand. But I don't see it as like, why is it a bad thing? It's just like, hey, thank you, I guess.
We're 5 people at the table. That means I'm gonna have to drink 5 more drinks, and I was planning on going home soon.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I get it. It's because of like you feel the sort of like responsibility of like, oh, so he bought a drink, he bought a round, so now everyone's like, it's gonna be their turn like at some point. And it's like, okay, if there's like 10 people, we're gonna be here till like 6 a.m. I don't think that's like necessarily like what it is. It's just like I'm trying to be nice, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are gonna have to drink like, oh, you pay this one, you pay the other. Like we can go hang out like in a month or 2 weeks from now, and maybe like you'll pick up the next time. It's like, I don't know, going out with like a friend for lunch, like, hey, you'll say like, no, I have to check, like it's okay, like I'm not expecting you to like stay there. It's just like, no, whatever, like next time we go out, like you'll pick up the tab, like it's okay.
We will feel obligated to pay you back for the drink you bought.
Exactly, it's not an obligation. It's just like a thing about being nice, and you don't have to pay me back, like whatever, next time we hang out, you'll just like buy me a drink.
You just wanted to be nice, but instead you accidentally caused him anxiety.
You make them like responsible. It's like, hey, now it's a burden. No, stop.
Imagine that you're starting a new job at a Swedish company. At the fika break, you start asking people how much money they make.
Okay, that is that a cinnamon bun? I like this looks very good. I think it's that. It's, I think a cinnamon roll, but I'm seeing a slice of lemon, which I find weird. So maybe that's not a cinnamon roll. Like something of like a pie. Maybe I thought it was carrot cake, but it has like white, something like a white frosting on top. So that's not it. And the green one, I think it's the Swedish like famous cake. The can't remember the name. Swedish tortilla. I don't know. Just making up names. The one that has like a little rose on top. I'm pretty sure it's that one.
Everyone suddenly looks away and mutters something.
Okay, yeah, but hold on. Like the whole thing about like people asking people like how they make, what they make. I don't think that's seen as like that's not normal. Like you wouldn't ask this to like a stranger. Maybe someone your coworker. Like it's different because it's coworkers. Maybe. I don't know, that's still seeing as weird. I think they're trying to like normalize this of like, you know, they've been trying in recent years to be like, hey, it's okay, you can tell me like how much you earn in the workplace. It's not that you're asking random strangers, but it's just like to see how much the other makes so you can maybe like see if you're not getting scammed. It's like, oh, am I getting like robbed? Oh, okay, no, like everyone here seems to make like the same amount or at least like around the same amount. But I still think it's gonna be a little weird to just ask this like first, like in your first week at a new job. Like I don't know, that's a little personal, right?
About a meeting they forgot. You just made a big mistake. Asking people about their salary is considered a big faux pas in Sweden. Swedish society is rooted in socialism and equality. Things are changing these days, but it's still considered rude to ask people about their salaries. A Swede will happily tell you about their divorce or their mental illnesses, but how much they make, that's a secret they'll take to the grave. But what if you start by first telling everyone how much you make? Well, that leads to the next taboo topic.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be like, what on earth is this person going on about? Like, I wouldn't do that. I think this is something that a lot of people, I think that's just like a general social rule. Like you wouldn't lead on. There are certain topics that you would just maybe ask first of like, hey, is it okay like to talk about this? It's like politics, like salaries, and maybe, yeah, I think that's it. Like, I think there's like a few little subjects that are like, you wouldn't just go around asking people this. And you'll probably ask first, hey, is it okay like if we talk about this? And they'll tell you like yes or no.
Thing is very rude in Sweden. You might be good at something or make a lot of money, but you don't talk about it. Jantelagen, the law of Jante, is a Swedish term for not believing that you're better than anyone else. The closest English term is the tall poppy syndrome, about cutting the
Yeah, I was thinking exactly about this. It's the tall poppy syndrome. But I think a lot of cultures have this of you don't want to stand out. Like that's seen as a bad thing because it's seen as maybe like a bragging. I think it's just like, especially I think Sweden, which is like based on like a lot of like equality. I can see why people are gonna be like, hey, you don't want to stand out because it's saying like, oh, what, you think you're better than everyone else? Especially because again, it's a culture that's very like rooted in everyone sort of like being the same and equal. So I can see why they would hate this.
Head of any poppy that grows taller than the others. People might smile and appear impressed if you boast about something, but don't be surprised if you're never invited back again to a party with that crowd. They won't tell it to your face, but you've just become a boasting pariah that people want to avoid.
Oh my god, okay. But I can see why.
The next thing not to do is pretty simple. Don't assume that all of Scandinavia is the same. Norwegians and Swedes are different. Danes and Swedes are different. And Finnish people aren't even Scandinavian. They're part of the Nordics. Each country has their own customs, their own language, and their own set of values. Danish people are all drunk and lazy, for example, and Finnish people are depressed and speak monosyllabically. And Norwegians just live off their oil money and wander around in the mountains. They don't do anything useful. So the next time you're thinking of saying that Sweden...
That's obviously was being like sarcastic of like a stereotype I'm guessing Swedish people have about those cultures. But again, it's funny because obviously between them, they're going to notice a lot of like differences because they're like in this culture and they're going to be like, we're so completely different. But I think coming from an outsider's perspective, that's what you would think, wow, they're very similar, which they are, again, from an outsider's perspective. But it wouldn't occur to me to say to them, oh, you guys are the same, because I know that's quite offensive. It would be like saying, I don't know, an American, like, oh, you're so Canadian. It's like, no, Canadian people and American people are different. Just as the whole Scandinavia, like, is not the same, and Finnish people are very different from Sweden, which apparently they're not even Scandinavia. Finland is not even Finland is not Scandinavia, which news to me. But I get it goes the same thing. I think people are quite offended if you're like group a bunch of like things, a bunch of countries and a lot of like cultures in just one. You put them in one like spot. That's seen as like pretty offensive because I know that everyone has their own culture. So it's like, yes, technically there are a lot of similarities, and you're going to notice it more if you're an outsider. But between them, because they're into it, they can see more differences. Which of course, that's just like a thing about like, I don't know, life.
Sweden is similar to Denmark, then you're implying that we are drunk and lazy as well. No, but seriously, we see the differences in our cultures very, very clearly,
Of course.
even if you might not. Have you ever been on an escalator in Sweden and noticed that you have a line of people behind you, sighing in frustration and looking annoyed? Chances are
No.
you've been standing on the left side of the escalator. Never stand on the left side.
You have to
The
stand
left
to the
side
right.
is for
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, I think a lot of places have this. It's sort of like a cultural thing of like you always have to step to the right because the left side is for like people to just sort of like people that are in a hurry, like they have to go through that place and you have to like sort of like step aside. But I think a lot of places do this. I think is it a European thing actually? I'm not sure, but I know that that's like a cultural thing of like just being socially mindful of like what's happening around you.
walking, and the right side is for standing still. This is mostly a problem in bigger cities like Stockholm. I don't even know if they have escalators in smaller towns. If you stand on the left side, no one
I knew that I was thinking of the same thing. But I was like, I'm not gonna say anything because it would be seen as like maybe I don't know. It's gonna be seen as rude if I mention like do like smaller towns and smaller places have escalators. I don't want to be. I didn't want to offend anyone, but he said it, and I'm guessing he's Swedish. So it's up here. It's not offensive. So is that a joke or is it for real? Because now I want to know. Because I was thinking the same thing. And it's not just like a bad thing. It's just like a lot of like smaller places. I would assume they don't really have escalators because they don't really have like malls or airports. I'm trying to think of like places that have elevators. Actually like I don't know, like big offices. I'm not expecting to see one of those in like a small rural town. So maybe I'm not being like out of left field with this.
will shout at you, because Swedes dislike confrontation. But if looks could kill, you'd be stabbed more times than Julius Caesar. Here's a simple little rhyme to help you remember where to stand. Stand on the right, now that's all right. Stand on the left, and you're a stupid bastard. In the US, it's common to call politicians religious and God-worshipping and God-fearing, and that's intended to be a good thing. If a politician in Sweden were to call themselves God-fearing, there would be quite a few raised eyebrows. Religion isn't very big in Sweden. Many people
okay.
have some sort of faith though, and we do like churches. They're big and cool, and they look absolutely
They like churches in the sense of like we built quite a lot of them throughout the years, but we're not necessarily like we're not seeing them as a place of worship. Like we're not actually going to attend mass or whatever it is, like a religious ceremony. The mass can be considered a religious ceremony, right? Like I don't know, a place of worship. But it's funny because I'm not seeing it's true. Like anything that really is a personal thing. It depends. Like a lot of people, it's not that all Americans are like so religious, but I do think there's a thing about politicians in general that they'll tell. Like I don't know what they do because again, it's sort of like a propaganda thing of like they'll a lot of them are, well, not all of them, but it's like, oh, they're Catholic, and there's like, yes, like God first and then family, and there's like a lot of like a very traditional sort of like seen as like traditional values, which are seen as like a good thing, especially like with politicians, because it's like, oh, it tells them like you're a good moral withstanding person and I can vote for you. I think maybe where their logic comes from and where that thing has come from. historically is like if you're like go to church and again you're telling me like you know you like fear God or I trust God I don't really know whatever, so it tells like you're religious and it's like oh then they must be good people so I can vote for them. But obviously I know that in reality clearly that's not it. Like a lot of people I think are pretty non-believers, but maybe they just like they run on that sort of like on that platform because it's seen as something, you know, that people actually like and people, you know, are seen as trustworthy. And yes, of like, yes, I can trust them. But it's like in reality, I don't know how many people actually like, how many politicians or actually like people in general are actually that religious, as in like, yes, you know, this is important to me and I go to church every week or every, I don't know, however it is that your religion tells you to go to church. But it's, you know, again, and I know clearly there's people that are like pretty religious and they're really like into it. And it's like, no, it's really in their, you know, it's important to them. And of course, as a sector of the population, that's obviously, okay, it's gotta be there. But I don't know, like, how many people actually, like, I'm again, just putting the United States as an example, are actually like attending church and I don't know, because I think a lot of people will tell you that they're probably like religious, but like they're non-practicing whatever, like they're not practicing Catholics, they're not practicing Jews. I don't know, like it's just like a thing about they're believers, you know, as in like I believe in higher power, I believe in whatever God my religion believes in, but they're not actually like, you know, following like the rituals and ceremony, except for like a few very specific like days maybe throughout the year of like, oh no, this is like a very important like cultural day, well not cultural, like a very important day for my religion, so I follow that one. But I think in general most people, I would venture to say most people are not like going to church every single day or every single week. You know, there's a few of them of course, but I think if you run the numbers I would think like it's probably fewer than you think. But it's still, they want that from their politicians, which I find a little like, it's funny, right?
Awesome, but you don't really go there to worship God. That's where you listen to choirs and concerts instead. Most people in Sweden are atheist or at least agnostic, and it's seen as a bit of an odd thing to start to talk about your faith. The best way to ensure that you're never invited to any of the cool midsummer parties is to say that you're deeply religious. If you have to say anything, just say that you're spiritual. That's much more accepted.
But that's interesting. So what exactly do they do in churches? There are concerts, but like, can I go to like a concert that's not part of my religion? Or is it like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like what, I think they're not Catholic in general. I think they're like, I think they're Protestant maybe, but they have churches and they have masses, but is it like, well, churches are technically open to anyone, right? So maybe I could, even if you're like Jewish, like you can go to a concert that's taking place in a Catholic church, right? Or you're Buddhist or something. I would actually would like, that's interesting because I would assume that in churches are just there for like, you know, to be seen maybe in Sweden, not in the rest of the world, but they're seen as like, oh, you know, it's like a nice place that I can go like check out because obviously the architecture is cool or, you know, it's very beautiful or it's just like a very antique place. But then what do they do exactly like for events there? And is it normal for you to just go and, you know, have fun? But do they have masses as well? I'm so curious about this.
Do you speak like this most of the time? Then you're not really gonna fit in Sweden.
Oh my god, okay.
Swedish people are pretty quiet, and we appreciate people speaking softly if they have to speak.
I was gonna be like, you're being like, but it's not even talking that loudly.
At all. Also, having your phone on speaker mode is just completely unacceptable anywhere.
Oh yes, exactly. But that's just like anywhere in the world. That's seen as something very, very rude. Like, please, like you're not in your house. Put some earphones on, and you know, do not go on speaker and do not listen to music or videos because that's what your phones are for. So do not do that. And that's in Sweden and like every other place in the world.
Just forget about that feature completely when you go to Sweden. Use your headphones like everyone else. Correct. However, Swedish people aren't always quiet. When a Swede is drunk, they will be as loud and obnoxious as humanly possible. I'm
Okay.
not saying that we Swedes are like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but I'm
seems
not saying
to
that we
me-
aren't.
Okay, yeah, because it seems to me that that's really the case here.
Do you enjoy a bit of personal space? Maybe a couple of decimeters or so? Well, Swedish people need at least a couple of meters at all times. During
good.
COVID, everyone had to stand 2 meters apart, but no one really noticed the difference in Sweden.
That's just
Don't
normal.
sit next to someone on the subway if there's an empty seat anywhere else in the car, and don't stand too close when standing.
That's actually quite funny because I think usually when you're that scene, and I don't know how many people like think about this, but I would venture to say a lot of people. If you're like in a subway or at a public transport and there's like a seat and there's like an empty seat, you're always going to take like the one that's like it's not taken because you don't want to sit like right next to someone unless obviously there are no available spaces. And of course, like I'm sorry, like I have to sit here because like there's no other empty space. But I think sometimes I think maybe you would see, and I don't know, maybe that's just like a me thing. But if you're like you're sitting and then someone doesn't like, if you're seeing, oh, there's a lot of empty seats and someone doesn't really like sit next to you, then you're thinking like, wow, is it something about me? Like, why don't they want to sit like next to me? It's like it's seen as rude, and you're like, I'm sorry, like I'm just I'm just sitting over there. But I get that. I know that realistically, that's just like what like few people I think actually go and you would actually think like there are empty spaces, why are you sitting like next to me? That's weird. It's like, yes, and I think that's just in Sweden, and I think a lot of people have that in their minds of like, why are you sitting next to me? Like, go sit over there, there's an empty seat.
In line. Otherwise, you'll make us poor Swedes extremely uncomfortable, and you'll come off as some sort of sociopath. Or possibly American. And whatever you do, don't start talking to people when standing that close. That's
Okay.
just plain weird.
Just like keep to yourself. Okay, noted.
Next is a short but sweet one. Don't talk about the Finnish hockey team. Yes, the Finnish are pretty good at hockey. You don't
It wouldn't have occurred to me in my wildest dreams to talk about Finnish hockey because I have absolutely no idea if that's a thing. So, okay.
have to rub it in. Sweden has been neutral for a long time, and we haven't been at war for ages. But the hockey matches between Finland and Sweden are as close as we get.
I didn't know that hockey was that important to them. Apparently it's a big thing in Finland and Sweden. Maybe it wouldn't surprise me. Like, shouldn't surprise me, right? It's like Canada. Like, they have a lot of, it's very cold. So, of course, like, what kind of, like, sport are they going to be playing? Of course, it's going to be hockey. And there's a rivalry, which doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of places, actually, like, that are close to each other with sports, like, they do have rivalries just because of, like, their closeness. I think it's just, like, your most likely enemy is, like, the one you have, like, right next door. So, makes sense. But I didn't know it was that big of, like, it's a big deal. So, they're pretty big on hockey.
There's one thing that makes Swedish people furious more than anything else. It's not murder. People die sometimes. It happens. It's not talking crap about Sweden. We do that ourselves anyway all the time. The worst thing you can do in Sweden is to cut in line. Standing in line is holy in Sweden.
But that again, maybe I say that queuing is very important to them, but I think in general, in socially, again, it's a social like rule. If you're cutting in line, do not expect to be treated like normally. Like, people are gonna be upset. I think if I don't know if Sweden is the same case of like they're gonna look at you like they're gonna be like what, or they're gonna actually put you out, like they're gonna tell you something like please get out. Because I know that it's like human nature. I know that I would be. I wouldn't. I don't know. Not very un-Swedish of me. But if someone cuts in line, I will let them know, and I will be like, "Hey, go to the back. Like, I'm sorry, you're not like. What do you think you are? You're better than everyone else. Go to your line. Go to the queue and wait, like the rest of us."
You must respect the queue, and you cannot try to cut in line. Granted, this is a bit of an extreme example. This is the line to get into Comic-Con Stockholm, but the principle still stands. Do you remember the law of Janta I mentioned earlier? Basically, don't believe that you're special and that you deserve to move ahead of others in the queue. It's all about fairness. Everyone hates standing in line, but everyone has to share the pain, and no one
Exactly.
gets special treatment.
Correct.
And there you have it. Cutting in line is probably the worst thing you can do in Sweden. And that ends my list of the top things not to do if you visit Sweden. I hope you found it useful or at least interesting. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day. Now to show what a hypocrite I am gonna try to cut in line because I have a press pass. Haha, sucks to be them.
Okay, this guy is really funny. Like, a lot of the things he was like, yeah, you know, like, people die. We don't care about murder. Like, he was very funny in general, and all the things he actually, like, how he do, like, the things that he said. But I do think that it's just like, again, about the queuing thing, it really bothers me. I'm not a Swede, but this bothers me too. Like, again, it's like a human nature thing of like, we're not animals. Like, if we're queuing, why would you think like you are better than the rest and be like, oh, I'm cutting line? I think maybe the most, I'm trying to think of like any situation where that would be seen as like, well, okay, is that allowed? I don't think it's never allowed. Never. The only place that I think I can make, like, any situation that I can think of, like, well, maybe that could be it. It's maybe of like, yeah, maybe like if you want to cut in line, and maybe you would like, because you have some sort of emergency, or you think you have a particularly good reason, maybe you would go and ask like the person. No, I don't know if like you would be that bold as to ask like the one that's standing like right, you know, he has the first spot, you know, but maybe he's first in line. But I don't know, maybe the place where you want to queue it, that you want to cut off, like maybe you would go like, hey, you know, I have an emergency, you know, this has happened, and maybe like, can you please, you know, like, see your spot? Can you queue me your spot? Maybe that would be like a good case, but it depends on the emergency. And I wouldn't actually like, I wouldn't look down upon like if that person tells them like, no, I'm sorry, like I was here first, go to the back. I would not look down on them. It's like, I completely understand, because again, it's like, we're not animals, like queuing exists for a reason, and again, it's like we're humans here, and because we're human, we have to abide by a certain amount, by certain rules, and that rule tells you that you shouldn't cut off in a queue, because you're gonna get lynched basically. And I don't know how in Sweden, like, he didn't really like tell us how people like handle that. Like, what happens if a tourist just like goes like, I'm better than everyone else, and it just like cut in? Do people actually go like make a fuss about it, or do they just like, you know, they look them like, oh my god, I hope karma gets at you at some point? Or again, they just like no, absolutely not, get out of here. Would love to know, because I think for Swedish people being that sort of like non-confrontational, maybe they would just like be like seething like in silence, like, oh, I'm hating this, but like they wouldn't actually like tell you, hey, stop. Which I think they should, because then it seems like you're taking advantage. Like, this makes me so mad, seriously, like, because I'm thinking of like the person that's like cutting off and it gets away with it, then he's thinking of like, then I'm like, I can do this whatever I like, I have no, like, who's here to stop me? So you should be stopped at some point, because it's like, that makes me again so upset, because it's like they're thinking they can get away with it, and it's like, no, that's bad. This is a very personal matter to me, apparently. But as for the other things, I think a lot of things are like, again, just, yeah, human society, like we should keep to like maintain the peace. Again, like being like not being that loud, you know, speaking, don't have like your speakers on. Like, a lot of things are very, you know, again, should be, if they aren't, maybe they should be, and a lot of places should actually, like, we should learn a little bit more about them. The whole, like, I think, you know, in general, the personal space, I think that's interesting. And again, that's one of those things that you should actually, like, a lot of places should implement, because it's like someone being like right next to you is like, oh my god, can you like step down a little bit, please? Like, I need my space. You know, some people are like very like, they want to talk to you like this, and you're like, I don't know you, like, you're a stranger, can you please like do not touch me, and, you know, like, maintain your space. So I think that would be a good thing. And but you know the left side as well. I think it's just like a very polite thing. I just like that you would assume like only polite people would do, but I think in Sweden it's just like a lot of people, if not everyone, does this because they're like a very polite society. And I think a lot of people cultures should gain too. Like they should definitely look up to Sweden to actually see what they can learn. The other thing of like that I'm being a little bit like, oh, that's a little weird to me. Well, the religion one, just because they have a lot of churches, not the fact that they're unreligious, because I think that's like normal, especially between like younger people these days. But the whole like the buying rounds, I think that will be the one thing that I'm like, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm sorry, but it wasn't. I mean, clearly I know not to do that now, but I can see why it's like it fills them with angst because it's like, okay, maybe I'll if I put myself in that position. Like maybe I can actually like being very anxious about this, like, oh, I'm sorry, like I definitely understand if I put myself in your shoes, but I don't know if, especially I'm thinking of like if you're a tourist, you know, you want to do something nice for the people that they're there, you know, you're visiting and you're just like, hey, I want to be seen as like a nice guest. So it wouldn't have occurred to me to think of this because it's like, no, I'm not doing it like I'm doing it because, you know, I'm not from here and I just want to do something nice. But, you know, I get the logic behind this all. And I would probably, if I were in their shoes, I would probably like say the same thing, like, no, do not buy me a round. Like everyone will buy their own rounds, and if they want to drink. But you know, again, because like I can see from the other perspective of like if I'm visiting and I want to do something nice for like my new friends, I would do that. So it's like, okay, I will ask them first, which I think again always a good like rule of thumb. Ask people before, you know, buying something, you know, even if it's just like a beer. But that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.